So, people in the comments were saying that James could always stomp in the original game. He didn't just kick, he also stomped. So let's see. I'm gonna load up one of my old saves, and in the spirit of being neutral and admitting when I'm wrong, do I even have enemies in this area? Enemy! Oh my god, he can stomp. Press and he kicks. Oh my god, James, shoot. Now I'm gonna hold down. Okay, so he can stomp. All right, so the comments were right. He can stomp. But in my defense, I'm not really talking about the fact that, you know, James can or can't stomp. I'm more talking about the fact that there's combos in the remake where you can shoot somebody in the limb and then smack them upside the head with a pipe, and then they fall into their back, and then you curb stomp them. You know, if you're trying to convey that James is inexperienced and he's not, you know, he's just a normal guy, would a normal guy be comboing monsters and ending them with a curb stomp? Because what James does in this game is he gets them on the floor and then he, you know, just tries to put them out of their misery. Whereas in the remake, him doing a combo on a guy and finishing him off with a stomp, it has a different context. It's more of like he's completely decimating his enemy in the remake, whereas he's just trying to make sure that the enemy is not going to stand back up and attack him in the original. People were also saying things like, oh, if you're mad about the change of the character designs, and you really shouldn't be mad about it because the remake is staying true to the concept art. And to me, that's not really a good excuse, because concept art is basically your first draft or your rough draft. Like, there's a reason why concept art is not what's usually used in the final product. It doesn't really matter what the concept art is because we grew up playing the finalized product. So yeah, finding concept art in a bonus level or unlocking it for completing the game is cool because you can, but I've never really cared about concept art. I mean, sometimes I'll see concept art and I'll think, yeah, this is better than the original. But Angela in Bloober Team's reimagining of Silent Hill 2, nowhere close to the final product of the original game. And if you buy this whole thing of, well, she's supposed to look young, so we made her look younger, then why did you give her a gunt? Why did you make her fatter? And then I'm hearing that the creators of the original game, Masahiro Ito, is that how you say his name? Masahiro? People saying that Masahiro Ito said that Pyramid Head never essayed any monsters in the original game. That people just interpreted it that way. You're telling me in a game that's all about SA and all about repressed sexuality and depression and assault and, you know, and death, you're telling me that a giant monster that's clearly doing what looks like SA on some monsters in a corner in a room, in a game where James is struggling with his inability to love his wife, and he's being haunted by a sexier, more seductive version of his wife, and Angela was SA'd by her brother and father, and she's literally in a room with rods going in and out of holes. Everything that was in Silent Hill 2 was intentional because it had an overarching theme of SA and violence and depression and repression. You want me to believe that that pivotal scene, that shocking scene in the original doesn't mean what we were led to believe that it meant for 20 years? In a day and age where Twitter exists and people are terrified of saying anything, I don't believe what people say anymore nowadays, because it's really their actions that prove what they really believe. So you can say that Pyramid Head wasn't committing SA on monsters, but they tried to convey a very dark story 20 years ago. This is a world where if Twitter finds out that you said something and they don't like the way you said it, or they just don't like the fact that you said it at all, they flip out and they try to destroy you. So I really don't believe the original creators when they come out 20 years later and say, oh no, what we intended to do 20 years ago, clearly what we intended to do 20 years ago is clearly not the case anymore. Don't believe your lying eyes. We're totally not afraid of Twitter hunting us down and cutting our head off.
Unfortunately, it's not just them. As you can see, making games better for everyone hit detection, if you scroll down, that their partners are Remedy, Sega, and Bloober Team. And right now, the only game that they are working on is Silent Hill 2. The bill comparison analysis, greenlight evaluations, but also sensitive issues assessment. Our team assesses the risk factors for depictions of characters from underrepresented groups, themes, and potential community reactions.
So they hire a consultancy firm to explain to them how they should or shouldn't convey the story of very adult themes. And it's like, you want me to believe that the remake is going to be better than the original when they need consultants to tell them how to write the story. You know what the original didn't have? And if it did, here's the thing. If we had consultancy firms this entire time telling us telling people how to tell stories, because people like to say like, oh, you're just blowing it out of proportion. A bad game is a bad game. It doesn't matter who works on it, what they put into the game. If you honestly want me to believe that consultancy firms don't matter, then why are we hiring them? And if this isn't the first couple of years that this has been happening, if this has been happening forever, then why were the games still so good back then? It's almost like we've become dumber as a society and we believe stupider things, and now we're too afraid to even tell stories about real things because we're afraid somebody on the internet, of all places, would get offended. And here's the thing, we didn't really need consultancy firms back then, which is why I don't think that we did have them back then, because we didn't have Twitter back then. I mean, even when we just really had, even when like Facebook just started and we had MySpace, like life was still good because all you cared about was putting up a Monster logo, a Monster energy drink logo on your MySpace, and listening to Ludacris and Hollywood Undead and showing off to your friends how cool your Monster Energy MySpace was. Life was cash back then. Like, I'm telling you, Halo 3, dude. Loading up Halo 3 and loading up Forge for 3 hours and not making a single thing, those were the days. Just hanging out in Foundry in Halo 3, those were the days. And then Twitter became more and more this cesspit, this snowball of garbage and bullshit. And now we have these consultancy firms that we have to hire and tell us in what way we're allowed to tell the story because we might offend somebody and somebody might get triggered and they might get scared. Guess what? The only way you're going to get stronger as a person is by experiencing life. And you're not going to experience life when you filter everything through a consultancy firm. Don't get mad at me for noticing everything that's stacked up against this game.